style lovers, today I will show you how to sew this bold, colorful halter neck jumpsuit. From cutting the fabric to sewing it all together, you will see how easy it is to create your own statement piece. Follow closely and you will be able to recreate this exact look with confidence. Please do well to like this video, subscribe to my channel and drop me nice comments. I'll be glad to read from you. Let's get started. This is the measurements we're going to be working with: bust circumference, waist circumference, hip circumference, crouch, the full length of the pants, thigh measurement, then the half length of the pants, and the shoulder width. Okay, I'm going to be drafting the pants first, then we'll draft the bodies after drafting the pants. So I'm working with 3 yards of crepe fabric. As you can see, I have folded my fabric into two. I'm going to be drafting my pants directly on my fabric. If you want, you can draft directly on the fabric. You can equally draft on your pattern paper. So what I'm going to do now is to fold again into 4. Okay, I left about 3.5 here for the back. That will be my back crotch extension. I want to draft the front and the back pants together. So the first thing I'm going to do now is to mark the full length of my pants. I have full length of 44 inches. I'm going to be adding extra 2 inches as hemming allowance. Okay, that means I have 46 inches now. So I will mark down 46 inches as the full length of my pants. Right, after that, the next thing I'm going to mark down is my waist to hip line. So I'll mark down my waist to hip line. I'll mark down my waist to crouch length. Okay, to get your crouch measurements, get a flat stool and sit on it, and then measure from your natural waistline to the surface of the chair. Or you can divide your hip circumference by 4 plus 1.5 or 2 depending on your height. If you are tall, add 2 inches. If you are of average height, add 1.5. okay, so for mine I have 11.5, so I'll mark down 11.5 as my crouch length. Okay, I'll come here and mark down 1 inch as the starting line. Okay, I will be marking my measurement from this line now. All right, so I'll come to the hip line and divide the hip circumference by 4 plus 1 inch. All right, if you want, you can add more for allowance. So I'm going to be adding just 1 inch to my hip circumference. I'll mark that down on my hip line as well as on my crouch line. Okay, then I'll come to the waist line and also mark my hip circumference. Then I'll connect the whole points. I'll come under the crouch line and mark my thigh circumference. To get the thigh circumference, you add 2 inches to your thigh measurement divided by 2. Okay, as my thigh circumference is 24, I'm going to be adding 2 inches to my thigh circumference, which will now give me 26 inches divided by 2. Okay, this is a standard. So I have 26 divided by 2 will give me 13 inches. Remember, I'm making my measurement from this line that I marked out. So I'll mark down 13 inches here. So I'm going to be taking this 13 inches down to the hemline. I'm going to be marking my crouch curve. Okay, so I'll come to the crouch line and extend this crouch line like so. So I'll just draw out a straight line to divide the angle 90 by 2. Then I'll come to that line and mark down 0.75. okay, to create a curve there. All right, you can mark down ½ inch here. You can equally mark down 1 inch depending on how deep you want your crouch curve to be. Okay, I'll come to the waistline and mark down my darts. Okay, so I'll be marking out ½ inch here for joining seam allowance. Okay, then from that ½ inch I'll mark down my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. This is my dart line. Then on each side of the dart line I'm going to be marking ½ inch. Okay, to create my dart. So my dart stopped at 1 inch up above the hip line. Okay, so now that I have marked my dart, I'm going to be marking my waist circumference. So from this crouch line, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4 down. So my waist circumference divided by 4 will give me 7.25 because my waist circumference is 29. Okay, so I have marked down my waist circumference divided by 4. Then I'm going to be replacing this dart intake. So I have 1 inch here. So I'll replace 1 inch. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to add allowance. Remember, I'm going to be taking ½ inch to join the crouch curve. Okay. So I will add that ½ inch. Then I can now decide how many inches allowance I want for the side. I'm going to be adding just ½ inch as side seam allowance. You can add more if you want. Okay, if you want to add more allowance, you can add more allowance here now, but I'm going to be having just ½ inch. Okay, because I already have ½ inch for the hip. You can remember, to get my hips measurements, I added 1 inch to my hip measurement. That means I have ½ inch for the joining of the crouch, and then ½ inch as the side seam allowance. So I'm going to be having just ½ inch at my waistline as well. So I will connect. If you want, you can add more allowance to your pants. I don't like having so much allowance on my pants. Okay, so now the front pant is ready. We are going to be drafting the back pant as well. So to get the back pants, because as you can see, I have my fabric folded in 4 pieces. Okay, so that means the one under is going to be my back pants. So I'll come to the crouch line and mark 1.5 up above the front crouch. Okay, I'm going to be marking down 3.5 here as the crouch extension for the back. Okay, I'm going to be taking this measurement down to the hemline. This 3.5, I'll take it down to the hemline. I'm going to come to the waistline and come in here by 0.75 because I'm going to be adding zipper at the back. If you're not adding zipper, you can maintain this crouch curve, the front crouch curve. But since I'm adding zipper to mine, I'm going to come in here by 0.75 and then I'll connect. Look at my back crouch curve. Okay, then into the crouch extension. So this is what I have now. Okay, this crouch curve for the back, I'm going to be adding 0.75 there so that my pant does not sag at the back. Okay, then I'll connect to the waistline like so. If you don't really understand how to draft these pants, tell me in the comment section. I will send you a well-detailed tutorial, okay, on how to draft these pants. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to add joining seam allowance. I'll add my joining seam allowance, which is ½ inch. Okay, remember, if you want to add more allowance to your pants, you can add it by the side here. So I'll go ahead and cut. I had to cut the front and the back crouch together. Then I'm going to take off 1 and mark down 0.75 here. I'll trim it off so that the zipper can lay flat at the back because I'm going to be adding zipper. This is what I have. I'll go ahead and notch my darts because I'm going to be sewing these darts down. So this is it. So I'll cut the side. Remember, I am not coming up by 0.75 for the front here. So I'm going to mark down just ½ inch at the top there. For the front pants, I'll cut it out. So I'll go ahead and also notch the dart intake. So now I'll cut the front crouch and then the front pant leg. Okay. This is what I have as my front pants and the back pants. Okay. For the pocket, I have 7 inches by 12. So I'm going to be cutting out the pocket now. Let me take the front pant so that I can use it and cut the pocket and place it on top of my pocket so that I can get the curve by the side. So I'll go ahead and cut out this curve by the side to make the pocket and the pants equal. Okay, so this is what I have now. Then I'm going to draw out curve for the pocket. All right, so I have 2 by 6.5. You can go deeper if you want, depending on the kind of pocket that you want. Right, this is the pocket pieces. So I'm going to take 2 pieces of the pocket pieces, only 2 pieces. I have about 4 pieces here because it is on fold. So I'll take out 2 pieces of the pocket pieces. I'll cut it out with the pants. And this is the kind of curve that I want for my pocket. If you want it straight, you can make it straight. I want mine a little bit curvy. So I'm going to be taking 2 pieces of the pocket pieces and then cut out. All right, so this is what I have for my pocket pieces. So I'll keep that aside. so that we can draft and cut the bodice. I've already drafted my back block. Okay, this is my back block. My shoulder to waist, that is my back half length, is 15 here. Okay, then after that, the next thing I did was to measure my back neckline, because I'm going to be using it to draft my lapel for the front. Okay, so I measured mine and I have 3.5. So this is the 3.5 that I have for my back neck. Okay, so I'll keep that aside and mark down the front block. Okay, so I have my fabric folded into two here now, and this part is on fold. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to fold this part by 4 inches. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark down this back neckline. Okay, I have 3.5 here, so from this folded part I'm going to be marking down 3.5. Right, so this is what I have now. So I'm going to go ahead and start marking my shoulder width from this line, this folded part. Okay, so I'll mark my shoulder width divided by 2. All right, and then I'll also mark down my chest line. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark my shoulder slope. Then I'll mark my basic neckline for the front. I have 3, so I'm going to start my shoulder slope from these 3 inches. You can mark more than 3. You can mark 3.5 if you want. And I'll also create my armhole curve. My bust circumference divided by 4. Okay, then I'll mark my shoulder to waist line, and I have 16 inches for my shoulder to waistline for the front. Okay, my back is 15 while my front is 16, so I'll go ahead and mark down 16 inches. Okay. I'll mark down my bust point measurement. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to come to my waistline and mark my waist circumference divided by 4. Okay, I'm going to be adding that to this my bodice. Okay, let me trim this out a little bit. I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, okay, on the waistline as well as on the bust point line. So I'll mark down 0.75 on each side of this dart line for my dart intake. Okay, then I'll connect to my bust point. I'm going to be replacing this dart intake here. So I have 1.5. I'll replace 1.5. I'm going to be adding side seam allowance. So I'll mark down 1.5 as my side seam allowance. You can mark more if you want to mark more. So I'll go ahead and mark my side dart. To be able to get your side dart, as you can see, my front half length is 1 inch longer than my back half length. So I'm going to be marking down that 1 inch under my bust point line. Okay, because I'm going to sew it down as my side dart. Okay, then I'll connect point to 1/2 inch before my bust point. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark down 7 inches from this folded part, and on that 7 inches I'm going to come in by 1.5. okay, then I'll open it up like so. If you're cutting your bodice as a shoulder bodice, you can go ahead and cut yours as shoulder, but I'm going to be making mine off shoulder. So I'm going to come under my chest line by 1 inch. Okay, if you want, you can maintain your chest line to have a small curve around my chest line. Then I want to close up this dart. I don't want to sew the dart down. After closing up the dart, I'll go ahead now and redraw my waistline to make it straight. And I'll also redraw this chest line. This is my center back and the side back. This is the up. So I'll go ahead now and cut out my pattern. If you're making yours as a shoulder bodice, you can go ahead and cut your shoulder. So this is what I have as my back block. I'll keep that aside. Then I'm going to convert this my front block to halter neck. Remember, if you're cutting yours as a shoulder top, you're going to be adding 1/2 inch here for the joining of the shoulder. Okay, but I'm not going to be cutting mine as a shoulder body, so I'm going to be having halter neckline here. So I'll connect to my neckline. Can you see? Then I'll add 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I have here straight out. So I'll cut like so. So if you're cutting from shoulder, you can make your shoulder and also join the front and the back shoulder together. So assuming we are cutting the back from the shoulder too, we are going to join the shoulder lines together, and then this part will go into the back neckline. Can you see? You start joining from the back neckline. Can you see? And then this part will go into the shoulder line, okay? Assuming you are adding shoulder and sleeve to yours, okay? But making mine off shoulder at the back, then the front will be a halter neckline, okay? So I'm not going to be making use of the back shoulder. So I'll cut out from here, like so. So this is what I have now. I'm going to be adding ½ inch, joining seam allowance. So what I'm going to do next is to mark this dart on the other side of my bodice, okay? So I'll get my darts and hold them together. I will place my back pattern paper on the fabric, then add all the necessary allowances. I added 1.5 side seam allowance, then 0.75 zipper allowance to the zipper area and 0.5 on the other side. I will have to cut out one more piece, which I will use to line the neckline. So what I'm going to do now is to go over to my sewing machine and sew down the side darts and the waist darts, okay? Then for this part that I open, okay, I'll bring them together and stitch on it. All right. So after stitching on the side dart and the waist dart, this is what I have now for the front. I also went ahead to stitch on that 1.5 space that I made here, okay? And I went ahead to also pipe the armhole because this is a halter neckline. So I stopped at where the armhole stopped. I'm going to be closing up this part because my jumpsuit is a backless jumpsuit, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and clip on it and then turn to the right side. So you go over to the ironing board and give it a good press. I'll also close up this remaining space from the neckline, okay? I want it to be neat, okay? This is the back pants leg. I have also gone ahead to stitch the darts, okay? Can you see? So this is the back bodies. I'm going to join them together with the back pants leg. I'll go on now and join them together at the waistline. After joining the waistline, I will also have to install my zipper for the back, okay? As you can notice, I stitched from my hip line, okay? This is my hip line. I stitched with ½ inch from my hip line down to about 2 inches. I did not stitch to the end. I stopped around 2 inches at the crotch area, okay? So I'm going to go over to my sewing machine now and join the waistline as well as install my zipper for the back, okay? I'll also turn the neckline, the back neckline, all right? This is the front pants leg. I also went ahead to pin down the darts. I did not stitch the darts for the front. I just had to fold in the darts a little bit, all right? I am not stitching the front darts. If you want, you can stitch your front darts down. I decided not to stitch mine down. I just folded it in, all right? Then I had to join the front crouch line, okay? Join them together with ½ inch, all right? And I also went ahead to install my pocket. If you don't know how to fix pocket to your pants, tell me in the comment section. This is what my front pant leg looks like. This is what the front bodice looks like after stitching, okay? I'm going to bring them together like so. I'll lay one on top of the other one by ½ inch. You can decide the breaking point. Okay, what I mean by breaking point is where you want your button to start from, okay? You can decide. You can start from your bust point or go down below your bust point. So for mine, I want my button to start from 6 inches, okay? From here, you can bring yours up or down depending on however you want. So what I'm going to do now is to bring the front pants leg. So I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and join the half length, that is the waistline, together, okay? So this is what I have after joining the front bodies to the pants. I went ahead to fix the zipper. Can you see? After joining the back bodies to the pants. All right. So what I'm going to do next now is to join them together by the side. I will lay the back on top of the front and pin them by the sides. I have 1.5 side seam allowance here at the bust area and at the waist. Okay, then from there I'm going to mark down the waist to hip line, okay, as well as the waist to crouch line. Okay, if you can remember, this is my crouch line and my hip line. So at the hip line I'm going to be taking ½ inch because that is what I have at the hip line. Remember that while drafting these pants, I divided my hip circumference by 4 plus 1 inch. That 1 inch, ½ inch was for the joining of the crouch line, and then ½ inch here. So that means that I have just ½ inch left here. Okay, then under the crouch line I'm going to be marking 1 inch. Okay, remember that I added 3.5 to the back for the crouch extension, so I'm going to be taking 1 inch by this side, and then this side I will take 1.5. Okay, so that means I'm going to be marking 1.5 here for the inseam. Okay, so if I add 1.5 to the 1 inch I have at the other side, that means I have 2.5. So I'll be left with 1 inch. That 1 inch is for ease. Okay, ease of movement. Also mark it on the other side of my jumpsuit. Okay, as you can see, I have already marked down the side seam allowance. So I'm going to go over to my sewing machine now and stitch on the markings. Okay, remember that I am also stitching on the 1.5 that I marked here for the inseam. I am also going to mark it on the other pants leg, okay, and stitch on it as well. I would also have to hem the jumpsuit. Okay, remember I have 2 inches hemming allowance here, so I'll fold in the 2 inches hemming allowance for each pant leg. Okay, I have stitched on the marking as well as stitched on the 1.5 seam allowance that I marked for the inseam. After that, you notice that there is an opening here. Okay, so all you have to do is just to stitch it together. Stitch from the back rush to the front crouch in order to seal this opening here. Okay, I have hemmed the hemline. So let me flip to the right side. The next thing to do will be to fix the buttons, okay, and then give the jumpsuit a good press. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share to your sewing group so that other sewmates can also watch and learn. See you in the next one.